Edmund was a 14-year-old boy who was made king of Norfolk. Norfolk was in the North Sea coast of England. This is in 855 A.D. The following year, Saint Edmund, is made king. He's accepted as the boy king, as the ruler of neighboring Suffolk. Edmund, despite his age, proves himself a successful and popular monarch. He is talented. He's a virtuous youth. He is a devout Christian and memorizes the Psalter so that he can join in the church's worship. Now, the Psalter is the book of Psalms derived from the Gallican St. Jerome's Vulgate Bible. This is basically the Psalms in a form used for devotion and worship. The book contains readings from the Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament. Peace and contentment reigns for over a decade in the kingdom of East Anglia. East Anglia is Norfolk and Suffolk. East Anglia is part of the 7 kingdoms of Anglo-Saxon England. This is known as the Heptarchy. East Anglia was Christianized in the 7th century by Mercia. Mercia was the leading kingdom in this Anglo-Saxon 7-kingdom conglomeration, but is in decline during the time of Edmund due to the rising power of Wessex. Mercia was in central England. Wessex is now the leader of the Heptarchy. Wessex was in South Britain and is, of course, the future home of Alfred the Great. Now, 866, the Vikings, the Danes, come into England. This is the biggest Viking invasion ever. A number of distinct fleets, each with its own chief. They come directly from the Carolingian Empire. Civil war among the Franks has lured ambitious warlords from Denmark to seek easy money. It takes the Franks 20 years to organize an effective resistance. Meanwhile, there are many raids on the coast of England. After many years fighting the Carolingians, the Vikings, the Danes, have immense experience in war on both land and sea. For example, finding and building fortifications, defending these fortifications. They know how to raid the coastline. They know how to find collaborators among the aristocrats. These collaborators hope to be potential future kings. Edmund is determined to spare his people bloodshed, and the king of East Anglia tries to make peace with the Vikings by paying tribute to them. The great Norse army is permitted to take up winter quarters among the Angles, and an uneasy truce prevails. In the spring, King Edmund even makes more concessions to the Vikings and provides them with horses. The Viking army then crosses the Humbein River and takes the city of York. They head north. The defenders of York are ill-equipped to withstand such a brutal and determined onslaught. And, well, their resistance is quickly crushed. York is in the kingdom of Northumbria. This is another one of the 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Northumbria is a consolidation of Deria and Bernicia. The inhabitants are descendants of Roman and Celtic Christians. The Vikings will now rule the southern part of Northumbria, York, for the next 100 years, give or take. The Viking army then marches south, cutting a path of destruction into Mercia, as far as Nottingham. The Vikings are plundering, burning, raping, pillaging, and enslaving the local population as they go along. This is a very rapid success at conquest. The Vikings ride across Mercia into East Anglia and take up winter quarters at Thetford. There is no doubt of the Vikings' eventual destination. Edmund, his idea to make peace with the Vikings, to pay off the attackers and or appease them, was a well-known and tried Carolingian tactic, but it didn't work with such a vast army. The Vikings are in the tens of thousands, not hundreds. And the Danes have subdued the land, destroyed all the churches and monasteries they can find, and, well, basically have run amok. King Edmund prays to God for guidance. The Viking conquests have served only to make the Danes greedy for more. Edmund must now raise an army to face the Vikings. And with deep reservations, King Edmund, the reluctant warrior, soon takes his troops into battle. Now, we have no factual account of King Edmund's brief military career, none that survives. But we have several folk tales that have managed to remain with us over the centuries. Now, Edmund fights the Vikings around 870 A.D. In these folk tales, Edmund has some early successes against the Viking troops, but Viking reinforcements are swift to arrive. The Danes, the Vikings, are battle-hardened and, well, warlike savages, and King Edmund's motley crew army is no match for them and must fall back. King Edmund tries to retire towards his castle, Farmlingham, in Suffolk, but is cut off before he can reach safety and is surrounded by the Vikings. Edmund is captured and now faces the Viking chief, whose name is Ingvar. The barbarian leader offers King Edmund terms of surrender. Edmund will be allowed to live, but must rule as the vassal king of the Vikings. And King Edmund must forsake Christianity and begin to worship the old pagan gods. The saint, the future saintly king, rejects the Viking proposal and tells the barbarian leader, God and religion are more dear to me than anything on earth, and I will never tarnish my faith in Christianity by offending God. Ingvar, the Viking ruler, is enraged and shouts madly, then you will die. Now, there's a variation in the folktale. Saint Edmund is in flight from the Vikings and is overtaken and surrounded at Hoxne upon the Waverley. In this variation, Edmund allows himself to be taken and surrenders in a church. Terms are again offered that are prejudicial to King Edmund's faith and to his people, and he refuses. King Edmund, in all the folk tales, will never purchase his life by offending God and Christianity. Now, accounts of St. Edmund's death differ. Some say he was spread eagle in the Viking manner and had to, endure the blood eagle Viking ritual. In this version, in this account of his death, Edmund's back is sliced open. The rib cage is spread. The lungs are then pulled out and spread over his back like wings. This was the blood eagle Viking ritual, a most grisly way to die. In other traditions, Ingvar, the Viking ruler, has St. Edmund tied to a tree and first torn with whips. His tormentors then shoot arrows at him. Ingvar at last cuts Edmund's bonds and drags him from the tree. The saint has been basically nailed to the tree by the arrows, and Ingvar finally beheads Edmund. Now, according to legend, King Edmund's head is disposed of separately in another part of the forest. There it was guarded, according to this legend, by a large black wolf. Sometime later, Edmund's men come upon his headless body and ask themselves, where is the rest of the king? Well, St. Edmund's head screams loudly, "Here I am." Then his head is miraculously reunited with his body. Now, the legend may be true or not, but the saintly king's body is intact when it was enshrined in the Suffolk town, which now bears his name, Bury St. Edmund. In some accounts, the king's body is first buried at a wooden church at Halliston in Norfolk, and then reburied later, circa 803 AD. Now, the shrine, Bury St. Edmund, becomes a very important pilgrimage site during the Middle Ages. It becomes a very popular pilgrimage site, and a widespread cult emerges centered around the martyred king in the late 800s in both England and Scandinavia. Now, the issuance of substantial amounts of coinage bearing Edmund's name provides proof of the saintly king's growing cult. Saint Edmund is venerated in the Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, and Anglican churches, and his feast day is November 20th. Edmund is the patron saint of kings and pandemics, and is invoked against plague. In art, Saint Edmund is portrayed wearing a heavenly crown and wearing a king's robe, holding a scepter and orb, holding a broadsword. All right, with that thought, we're going to close.